Hi folks, this feels a little strange sitting here behind a camera doing this, but I just wanted to take a few minutes to share my faith story, I guess, the journey of how I became a Christian. For those who don't know me, I'm Stuart. I've been coming here to Woodlands for a little over 13 years now. So as I thought about my story, how did I become a Christian, thinking back to my childhood, my childhood memories are happy. They're good memories. As far as my interest in God and the things of Christianity were concerned, they're probably minimal. My experience growing up as a young child was going to Sunday school, most Sunday mornings, I guess, but not really going to church, not really being concerned of the things of God in any way. And if I'm honest, much more interested in football and going out with my friends and doing things like that. And I suppose if you had asked me at the age of 7 or 8, did I believe in God, I would have answered yes. But for me, it wasn't anything personal. It wasn't anything more than, yeah, that's probably true. And I suppose the other thing that strikes me whenever I think back, I'm so thankful for particularly my granny. My granny is a Christian and is the sort of woman who would bring up Jesus in any conversation. And I know that she's prayed for me and my sister and other members of our family for years, probably since I was born. And I'm so thankful for her. But yeah, I suppose as a child, my mind was elsewhere. I was more interested in other things than God. And to be honest, the first real experience of the gospel is something that was relevant to me, something that was important, something that was personal, something that I needed to make a decision on, was, I think, in my early teenage years. I was fortunate enough to have a real good friend growing up, Stephen Silverson, and his dad would have took the youth club just down the road here at Carrick Baptist. And like Stephen, we would have went along mostly for the football and the tuck shot maybe. But John took a 5-minute epilogue at the end of each youth club night. And I remember one night sitting there, as I say, I can't remember the exact time or what age I even was, but John was going through a series on Revelation. And it might sound a little strange that a 5-minute epilogue at the end of a youth club to be based on Revelation, in a room full of teenagers with no interest at all in what you're saying. But something struck a chord with me as John was going through those nights. It was the seriousness of sin. It was the reality of heaven and hell, the reality of eternal life. The fact that we needed to make a decision on Jesus and that my sin needed to be dealt with personally. And that was the first time I remember those things becoming real to me. And so I'm unsure of the date that I became a Christian, but I think it was about that time. At the age of maybe 12 or 13 was the first time I had this conviction of sin personally. And I think I probably made a decision at that time. Looking back through my years in school, I was very fortunate to have Christian friends. Miles, who comes here as well, we met in first year at school and have been friends ever since. And we had other friends as well. And I'm very aware that, possibly my life could have took a very different path, different friends, different priorities. Things could have turned out very different. But I'm very thankful that God has blessed me with Christian people along the way. In first year, probably up to 5th year through school, I guess I was typical of many young people, many young Christians, in the sense that my faith was shallow. I was probably very inconsistent in how I lived. Wasn't really going to church anywhere regularly. I went with my friend Stephen to his church the odd time, but nothing overly regular. And if I'm honest as well, most of the time other interests, other pursuits pushed God to one side, and he wasn't a priority in my life. And I guess a turning point for me in my Christian journey was about the age of 16. I remember sitting in GCSE IT class. Stephen Kincaid was our teacher at the time, and Skin started to tell us, we knew that he was a Christian, we knew that he came here to Woodlands Church, and he started to tell us that there was a football trip coming up the following summer to Thailand. And he had said to myself and Miles, who were in the class at the time, why don't you come along to church? Why don't you come along and sure you can go on this football trip to Thailand? I remember thinking, there's no way you can just do that. Skin's being really nice and really friendly, but there's no way. But I suppose to cut a long story short, that's exactly what we did. We had other friends, Holmesy and Gary Walker, in our circle of friends at school who came here to the Woodlands, who came to BB and YF, and so we started coming along to youth club, I think, at the start. And we really enjoyed it and started coming along to YF when Stuart Hawthorne was youth pastor here. And again, loved it. Met other friends, Pete and Johnny and Gary and others, through common interests in football and just really felt a sense of belonging and fellowship here right from the start. And so me and Miles decided that we were enjoying YF, we were enjoying youth club, that we would start coming along to church. And again, it was very similar. We found that we were here a matter of weeks and felt like it had been a lot longer. The fellowship, the welcome, the praise was something that we hadn't experienced before. It was new, it was fresh. The preaching was passionate, it was from the Bible. And so that summer in 2007, we went to Thailand. I think there was a group of maybe 26, 27 of us. And again, that was an experience that in some ways was life-changing. 3 weeks spent with a common interest, a common theme, to share the good news about Jesus. Spending time each day in prayer and praise, fellowship with other Christians. It was something that was new for me, something I hadn't experienced before, and possibly one of the best couple of weeks of my life to date. And so, as I said, probably I became a Christian in my early teens. But it was around this age, at 16, 17, when I think in some ways I began to take it seriously. I started to realise that this is not something to be just played with and to say, yeah, I'm a Christian if somebody asks, but it doesn't actually affect your life. And it was around this time that I began to be challenged that this is a whole life thing. It's all or nothing. You either do it and are a Christian properly, all in, or not at all. And so it's been a journey since. And like any journey, full of ups and downs. Days whenever I get it right, and days whenever I get it wrong. But overall, and through all of that, I'm very thankful that I'm no more of a Christian the days that I think I'm doing okay. And I'm no less of a Christian the days when I'm not. And I suppose through all of that, I'm so thankful for Christian friends and family and influences in my life throughout this journey. Looking back, I can see along the way how God has placed certain people in my path, just to get alongside me, to encourage me, to pray for me, and so thankful for that. And then since the age of 17, so thankful to belong to a church like ours, to again do life together, and people to keep you on track when you're struggling yourself. And as well as being connected here in Woodlands and having a church family, somewhere like this to call home, a couple of other, I suppose, key moments in my life then as a Christian that I just wanted to share with you. Key things that I've discovered along the way that I've found to be really helpful. And the first was, I think maybe about 6 or 7 years ago now, learning to discover that sin was something that it not only broke God's law, but broke his heart. And I think from listening to Tim Keller, his sermons, or maybe reading his books, that's something that became really real to me. Up until that point, I'd probably seen sin as something that sure broke the law of God, and seen God as somebody who was waiting for us to slip up and point the finger, and someone who was always angry. But it was so much more than that. That sin actually broke God's heart, and the personal nature of sin, the personal offence that it was, and the depth and the length that God went to fix that broken relationship, the personal nature of salvation. And so it might sound really obvious, but that was something that hit me like a ton of bricks at that time, and it seemed so real, so personal, and so much more than just a list of do's and don'ts. And the second thing was more recently than that, through probably mostly the work of John Piper then, was discovering this connection between God's glory and my joy. John Piper famously talks about it all the time. He says that God is most glorified in us when we are most satisfied in him. And again, it's something that it sounds so obvious maybe to some, but this was something that really changed my whole outlook on Christianity. That God's glory wasn't something for us to try to do and try to seek after and put our own joy to one side, but it actually was one and the same thing. That as we seek to glorify God in everything that we do, we actually find our most joy and our satisfaction in those things as well. And so in many ways, my story as a Christian is quite ordinary, I think, but at the same time, it's not at all. When I think about what was required to save even one sinner like me, the love of the Father, the plan of the Father, the life, the obedience, the death of Jesus, the enabling of the Holy Spirit, all of which, while I was an enemy of God, we were thinking about that a few nights ago in our cell group, all of these things while I was far off, while I was an enemy of God. And so I think in some ways then it is a pretty amazing story.